The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. From hot dogs to cool kitties, this is Darkside of the Pooch.
Dr. Ab, what you got? That's what I'm talking about. Darkside the Pooch. It must be a Monday. It runs every single Monday, and coming up starting next week, Darkside the Pooch will be running every single day of the week, Monday through Friday, so you can get all of your pet news, your pet stories. Very special day today. You know what it is today, Dr. Rab there from the Rossbridge Animal Hospital? Today is August 1st when we're recording the show, but it's no longer August 1st. You know what it's called now?
It's National Pet Day.
It is Dogust 1st.
Oh,
this is the universal birthday for pets adopted from shelters. They're now saying that, because you get dogs from shelters, you never know how old they are, right? And so you just have to make up a birthday. So today is Dogust 1st, the first ever. So every Dogust 1st, you can celebrate the birthday of your pets adopted through pet shelters. Isn't that wonderful?
I like that. I like that a lot. It's like adopted kids. They're gotcha day.
Yeah. Let's get into this a little bit because, you know, I had dogs my entire life. We always had mutts. We loved mutts. They were always mixed breeds. They were the best dogs we ever had. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that we weren't a wealthy family. And there was usually a gift or someone said, hey, we got an extra pup. Will you take it? And we went from one dog to the next dog. And then you got your purebred people, you people that like to go out and spend thousands of dollars on an individual animal for whatever reason it is. Some people will only buy purebreds. Some people, it doesn't really care. Sometimes I've had both. I got a Havanese, I've had a poodle, and then I've had mutts. I've got an Australian Shepherd. So tell me, what kind, from a personality standpoint, what differences do you see in customers when it comes to whether they have a mutt or a purebred, or is there one?
I don't think there is one. I think that maybe people have like a heart for rescuing a dog.
Yes.
You know, maybe that's just, you know, that's just kind of their mission, you know, or that's their nonprofit. You know, that's what they like to do. But I think I don't think it's a quality or a characteristic in a person versus someone who gets a purebred versus someone who gets just a dog that is at the shelter and is not any one specific breed. I think it's just, if you have a thing for childhood cancer and that's what, that's your passion,
Mm-hmm.
that's your deal. But some people just their deal is rescuing dogs and taking care of dogs. And so they want to find the one that doesn't have a home. That's just their thing. Somebody else's thing is, addiction. Trying to help people with addiction. So, I think it's just it's a calling, really.
There you go. He's Dr. Rab Stewart, Rossbridge Animal Hospital, at Rossbridge Vet on Twitter, the Rossbridge Animal Hospital on Facebook, of course. And you can find his store out there in the Rossbridge area, 208-0301, 205-208-0301. Dr. Rab Stewart joins us every single Monday for Dark Side of the Pooch. What's happened at the store? Anything interesting going on?
Oh, man. You remember a couple of weeks ago we were talking about this influenza deal?
Yeah, and I saw where there's a lot of pet shelters actually closing down right now because it's becoming somewhat of a pandemic or an epidemic. What's going on?
Oh man, it is just spreading like crazy. And the Humane Society, the GBHS, has said that they're going to slow adoptions and they're going to slow any intakes. Dogs that are considered to be, dangerous and a threat, they're still letting animal control drop off, but they're being very, very cautious with dog-to-dog contact. But they're, the surrenders, they have basically said we can't take any unless they're a threat. And then they're taking a lot of precautions with they're doing some work with veterinarians that specialize in this type of upper respiratory kind of shelter pandemics. So they're putting their heads together with a really great veterinarian from Florida to try to figure out, how they can bet. And it's not just Greater Birmingham Humane Society. I'm just using them as an example. It's, tons of boarding and grooming facilities all throughout this area and outside of the area, because when we call our I think we saw our first case of flu close to a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we immediately called the manufacturer of our flu vaccine, and because these dogs are still getting this, even though they've gotten the vaccine. Mm-hmm. And we talked to them about what we were seeing, and they already knew about it. So it's not just in Birmingham. I mean, it's outside of here. It's regional, outside of our state.
All right, so let's dive into this now. First of all, and I got a lot of questions here for you, so let's pick one off at a time. How does this start? I mean, influenza's been around for dogs for a long period of time. We've never seen it at this point, but how eventually did this actually start?
Well, the areas that have former horse racing or dog racing are hotbeds. Mm-hmm. So, this didn't start, again, I don't think this started in Birmingham, but, they've got a lot of really smart people that deal with these kind of outbreaks. And so maybe at some point we will be able to find that first case. But, areas that have, that in their history, it's really common that it pops up in those areas. But also there's just so much dog travel. Yeah. There's just people take their dogs everywhere, on planes and cars, wherever. And so the interstate travel, it never stops. I mean, unless COVID stops it. But, now it's just back as it always has been. And so these dogs, they travel, and this outbreak could have started anywhere in the country. Yeah. And you just get that dog that's positive, and its home is in Birmingham, and it gets groomed, the first Tuesday of the month, or it goes to daycare 5 days a week. That dog spreads it to, 15 other dogs, and then each one of them spreads it. So,
All right, so let's go with symptoms. What are the symptoms if your dog has influenza?
Almost all these dogs are coughing. And that's how the owners know, because it's hard to pinpoint mild lethargy or, maybe body aches, body soreness. Most people aren't going to pick up on that in their pet. They're just going to say, oh, maybe they're just tired from playing, or, whatever, because the dog cannot verbalize, I just don't feel good. I feel achy, or I don't feel great. So the things that you'll see is the cough, almost with every one of these dogs. Maybe a little bit of inappetence, so they're not one to eat a lot. But those are the two main things that we see. Sometimes they'll have a little bit of nasal discharge, whether it be clear or kind of mucousy. Okay. Mucoid nasal discharge. But, the cough seems to be universal in all these cases.
Okay, so should dogs, first of all, is it a killer? If it's not treated, can it kill the animal? Second of all, obviously, when you go in to the Rossbridge Animal Hospital and your dog gave his influenza, what is that treatment like? And can dogs be vaccinated prior to them getting influenza, or is it a vaccination that they get before? In other words, should people have their dogs vaccinated right now?
Those are all really good questions. The first question, let me start with the vaccine. Yeah. The vaccine is effective, and you don't want to give it once symptoms start. I mean, the influenza vaccine is something that we recommend that dogs get once a year, and we have them on the schedule. They get the vaccine. Okay. But if they contract the virus, they start having symptoms, we don't want to vaccinate them at that point. Because the body and its immune system is already working overtime. Yeah. And if you vaccinate a sick animal, it can make them worse. So we have not seen any deaths from the flu vaccine, from influenza, from getting flu. But it is possible. But dogs are going to die of flu the same way that a person dies of flu. Usually it is a secondary infection that causes pneumonia, and then that basically makes it impossible for the dog to breathe, and they die. Yeah. Two of these cases, off the top of my head, have developed pneumonia, but we have been able to treat them, and they've recovered. So we, at our practice, have not had any casualties, but it certainly can happen. Okay. I think there was one more question there, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, I just wanted to know. So you said at the beginning of this talk that there are some animals that have been vaccinated that are getting influenza. What's going on there?
any vaccine that you give, it has its main job is to keep the pet from getting sick at all. But its second job is to limit symptoms and severity. So no vaccine is 100%. It has no. It's not 100%. It's not efficacious to 100%.
Okay.
So even though they are still getting the virus, the dogs that have been vaccinated, their symptoms have been limited and they have not gotten sick. So I think that I don't pretend to know a lot about human medicine.
Yeah.
But the same thing happens with human vaccines. Now, the COVID vaccine, again, that's a whole different type of vaccine.
Sure.
So the vaccines that we use are either modified live vaccines or they're killed vaccines. Modified live vaccines, they have the live virus in it, but it's modified so that if you give the vaccine, you don't get incredibly sick. Killed viruses don't have the live, or killed vaccines don't have the live virus in it. It just has the information of the virus.
Mm-hmm.
And so the body takes that information and it mounts an immune response. So, no vaccine is perfect because it is not the actual virus. And that's why they're not 100% effective.
Yeah, and certainly if you think your dog has influenza, take it to the Rossburg Animal Hospital. But if you don't, or maybe you miss it, or maybe you just think your dog's coughing a lot and you just kind of slips your mind, is it a deadly disease, or is it like influenza for human beings where some are severe and some are not?
Well, it's not so far with us. It's not deadly, but it is definitely something that if your pet's coughing, you need to have them seen.
Yeah.
If they're not eating, and that goes on for no more than 2 days, it needs to be seen. And if you notice that your dog is overly lethargic. So, if you're looking at your dog and you think, well, maybe it's a little more lethargic than usual. Don't go on that. You're going to know if your dog is lethargic or not. And if you get to the point where there's no question my dog, it just doesn't have the energy that it had a week ago, then it needs to be seen.
I know I'm going to get this question too, but is it transferable? Can you get flu from a dog, or can a dog get a flu from human?
No. So the canine influenza cannot be spread between dogs and people. Now, the interesting thing is, so the tests that we have sent off, these dogs are also testing positive for influenza A, and there is no vaccine for influenza A. They're testing positive for influenza H3N2, which is that's the type of strain, and they're testing positive for influenza A. Now, people also get influenza A, but what we don't know at this time is this the same influenza A that people get?
Yeah.
But I will also say that we haven't had any clients that have said, hey, my dog tested positive for the flu. Now I haven't.
Yeah.
So I don't, I think that remains to be seen. But the H3N2 is definitely not something that is zoonotic, meaning transmissible from dog to people.
Well, and hopefully we'll have this dog influenza under control before we actually hit our flu season a little bit later on. I know it usually happens at the end of summer and early fall here. Darkside the Pooch, we run it every Monday. Start next week. You can get it 5 days a week. 1 day is just not enough. Dr. Rab Stewart, of course, the Rossburg Animal Hospital, 205-208-0301, 208-0301. They're the best. And on top of that, we've got some great emails. info@TonyCurryRadio.net, info@TonyCurryRadio.net. Drop your emails, or you can go to TonyCurryRadio.net, become a bonehead, and drop your emails there. Penny in Birmingham has, she wants a dog myths busted. She wants you to go, she's got 10 dog myths, and I'll give those to you here in just a second. But we have another question here from Penny in Birmingham. She says that she's having issues with ants. She said, I've never had issues with ants. I'm having issues with ants. And I thought it's funny because you get rid of ants in the pantry, and then they end up in the kitchen, then they end up in the living room. And then all of a sudden I woke up one morning and my entire thing of dog food was filled with ants. And she is having an issue. She goes, no matter where I put the dog food, no matter how many times I clean it out, I keep getting ants in my dog food. What can I do?
I wonder if she puts it in like a container because
Yeah.
I leave my dog food in the bag,
Yeah.
and I don't have any problems with ants getting in it.
Okay.
But I wonder if she put it in a container, if that would help. Um, Otherwise, pest control. I know a great pest control company. Penny can email me.
Okay. There you go. All right, get it done. Also, we have Taylor in Gainesville wants to know, and she loves giving her 3 dogs rides in the car. She drops the windows down all the way, and she's never thought her dogs would jump out of the car. She said, but do I need to worry about that? Do dogs sense, hey, I'm going 65 miles an hour, I don't need to jump out of the car?
We've treated a couple of dogs that have jumped out of cars before.
Really?
Yeah, and they were all not at my current practice, but there were a couple that I treated where I used to work, and I don't know if it's just a difference in that area, that location,
Mm-hmm.
or if just the luck of the draw,
Yeah.
But they, I think these dogs that I've treated for jumping out of cars before, I don't think it's an issue that they fell out. I think that if I remember right, they jumped out. There was something that they saw, and I don't know how fast they were going at the time. I don't remember that. I don't know if it was like they were stopped at a stop sign or a red light, and that dog saw something that piqued its interest, and maybe the owner wasn't stopped 100%, and they just bailed out. But the ones that I've treated have not been real serious. It's all just been kind of superficial wounds, scrapes and kind of bumps.
So I'm betting it's probably at a traffic light. Maybe they saw another dog in another car and they wanted a little piece, maybe.
Yeah, I'll tell you what we see more of. And the ones of these that we have seen have been fatal are golf cart accidents.
Really?
Dogs jumping. Yeah, dogs. Well, where we're located right now, it's a great neighborhood, and a lot of people have golf carts.
Yeah.
And we had one in our neighborhood that was fatal, and then we had a client who spends half their time here and half their time in Florida in a community down there. Well, that has a lot of golf carts, and one of their dogs down there in Florida jumped out of a moving golf cart. Wow. And killed it.
That's sad. This is Darkside the Pooch with Dr. Rab Stewart from the Rossbridge Animal Hospital on Twitter, Rossbridge Vet, and also the Rossbridge Animal Hospital on Facebook. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. If you have some email questions, we'll get into some dog myths busted here in just a second. I'm going to ask a question, though, for my operations manager. He got his Australian Shepherd. I know he brought it to the Rossbridge Animal Hospital last week. It is a beautiful dog.
We saw it Friday.
It is a beautiful dog. The color on it is unbelievable. Its eyes are beautiful. But he is smothering that animal. he cannot go 3 minutes without being around that puppy dog. And I love that about him, but there's a reason why he's not at work today. But I'm like, and it's just like a baby, right? When you have a baby, you just cannot be around a baby long enough. Is that good for an animal in this particular case? Do puppies need to have alone time? Do they need some independence? Or is it okay just to smother it until you finally get tired of it?
I feel like this is a loaded question.
Get him back to work.
No, but they need to be alone some. Yeah. I think I feel like Mondays are the day that it needs to be alone.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. I don't really know the day. I know that Mondays are big at the Tony Curry Radio Network. That's why I said that.
Yes.
But they do need some alone time so that they understand that you're going to come back, because if you spend all your time with them for the first 2 weeks, that first time you leave is going to be really traumatic, Yeah. So they need to have socialization, but they also need to have some time where they're by themselves. And you need to initially, if you can, you need to do just short periods of time. Like when you first get them, make them be alone for 5 minutes, then stretch that out, make them be alone for 10, 15, half hour, an hour, and get them to where they're okay by themselves. And I wish I had done this. I mean, I'm speaking from experience here because, my dog, if you put him in a kennel, he loses his mind.
Yeah, I know, right?
But a part of that is because he was one of these dogs that was on the streets. We don't know his history. We don't know his exact age. He was young. He was a puppy, so it's hard to know exactly what that trigger is, but you got to train the dog to enjoy the kennel, and you have to give them treats while they're in there and try to make it like make it a game, or just kind of start small and work your way up.
All right, dog myths busted. You ready to go? Terry she gave us 10 of these things, and we'll just go ripping through them, all right? You let me know whether they're a myth or whether they're busted or whether they're plausible. Ready?
I hope I know the answers.
The first one is dogs can't tell how long you've been gone. It is amazing. You could be just walking out of the mailbox and you come back and they're all over you. You're gone for 3 days. They react the same way. Dogs can't tell time.
I think that is true up to a point. I don't know what that point would be. So I would say that is true, but I think they can tell the difference between like 1 minute and an hour. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to longer times, I don't think they have any concept of time.
All right. Number 2, a wet nose is a good nose. Dry noses mean your animal's sick.
I'm going to go with myth on that. But again, it's up to a point. If a dog is dehydrated, then their body is going to find ways to conserve moisture. But I have people call our office from time to time, and they say that I know that my dog is healthy because it has a wet nose. Well, that's not true. I mean, dogs can be sick and have wet noses. And then I've had the opposite. My dog has a dry nose. I know that it's sick. That's also that's not always true. So there's probably a little bit of truth to that. But for the most part, judging your dog's overall health by the moisture content of the tip of his nose is not a very good idea.
Well, when your nose is running, are you healthy?
I'm not. I'm not healthy when I have a wet nose.
Does your wife like that when you nuzzle up to her neck when your nose is running?
No, she's like, no, she doesn't. My wife is very ticklish, so if I do anything with the neck, she's like a turtle. She puts her head in her shell.
Dark side of the Pooch. Oh my gosh! Right here on Tony Kurre Radio, and by the way, starting next week, it's run every day of the week. Number 3, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Oh, that's definitely a myth. You can teach an old dog new tricks.
Okay. All right. Number 4, my dog eats grass whenever it has an upset stomach.
So dogs may eat grass if they have an upset stomach, but dogs also may eat grass if they want to give themselves an upset stomach. So again, I think
now hold on. Say that again. Now that was good.
Yeah. So I think dogs will sometimes eat grass to give themselves an upset stomach because they know that they know that it's an emetic, meaning that it's something that can make them vomit.
Yeah.
But dogs will eat grass. Dogs will eat anything at any time for any reason. So if your dog is eating grass, it doesn't mean that it has stomach pains. And if it's eating grass, it doesn't mean that it wants stomach pains. It's just one of those things where you can't really put a whole lot of stock into it. But dogs will eat grass in an attempt to vomit. So maybe they are nauseous when they start eating the grass.
That's pretty smart. And I will say this. I saw my Australian Shepherd eating some grass yesterday, and I left him outside because I knew he was going to puke, and he did. And he seemed to be better. So there you have it. Dog myths busted here. Well-trained dogs will never bite.
That's a myth. That's a myth. Because, dogs are still animals and they don't know proper etiquette. So even if you have a well-trained dog, if, for example, the thing that we see most of the time is like small children.
Yeah.
They get in the dog. They don't understand they don't understand the cues of a dog when the dog is fed up and when the dog might bite. So, I'd say well-trained dogs will still bite. And I think children are the culprit, a lot of times. They just don't know when to stop pushing that dog's buttons.
All right. Number 6, it's important for me to show my dog that I am the boss. I'm not sure. I think we all want to do that. And I think by giving it right commands and training it correctly, it knows that. But I'm not sure how that works. But does that make sense?
Yeah, that is not a myth. It's important that your dog knows that you're the boss. You don't want to intentionally do things to make a dog be submissive and fear you. That's not what it's about. It's the same with kids. Like, you want your kids to have a healthy respect, but you don't gain that by child abuse.
Yeah.
Just like you don't gain it by animal abuse.
Yeah.
The best ways to teach your dog that you are dominant is to, when it's young, flip it on its back and make it expose its belly to you. But then, praise it and pet it and let it know that, yes, I'm dominant and you are in some ways inferior. And here's how I'm going to show you. But at the same time, I'm here to help you and love you and, have a good relationship. So, but when dogs, they perform a behavior that is not ideal, then there needs to be some way that you let them know that that's not okay. Whether that be verbal, loud noise, if you have one of these e-collars or electrical collars or buzz collars or spray collars or whatever, it's important that they know what's right. What's a right behavior and a wrong behavior.
I typically have not had an issue with my dogs knowing that I'm the alpha dog, but I have had a dog and come to find out that it was having seizures, so I felt bad about the way I treated it. But I have had dogs growl at me. My dogs, after I've had them for years, actually growl at me. What's the best thing to do when a dog growls at you, your home pet?
I'm just speaking from experience here. When I've had dogs that growl at me, first of all, I don't take a step back. If it's my own personal dog,
sure.
You cannot take a step back. You either have to stand your ground or you have to have some type of body language that would show them that you are not afraid. So, I think this is something that we talked about before, but it's really interesting how dogs sense our body position. So if a dog is showing aggression at you and you want to try to make it back down, okay, you want to be sure that you're facing the dog with your front. If you turn to the side, a dog sees that as a sign of submission or inferiority. So, and sometimes it's time to tuck tail and run, because maybe we're talking about a dog you don't know. Maybe we're talking about your neighbor's dog who is ready to castrate you.
Sure.
So at that point, you don't want to stand and face it. You might want to turn, tuck tail and run or walk back slowly or whatever. We're only talking about if it's your own personal dog. You want to face it. You want to be big. Maybe even take a step towards it. Maybe take a loud step towards it. That's what I do. I will take a step at my dog and stomp.
Then do you discipline that dog? I mean, I've grabbed the dogs by the scruff of the neck and then I discipline them because I don't want them to think it's okay to growl at me. But sometimes I don't think they put two and two together.
It depends on what their response is to that. That body language. If they kind of cower down when I step towards them and make a loud noise, if they kind of cower and tuck their tail and walk away, then I'm okay. But if they don't show a sign of submission based on what I do, then I might take it to the next level and put, do some type of either using a collar, one of these like a prong collar, or an electrical collar or a spray collar or something like that. And then at that point, you may have to get physical with them. But all the dogs that I've ever had, that's all I've needed to do.
Yeah.
Take a step towards them, make a loud noise, and they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, this is the guy that takes care of me." And it's only happened a couple times.
Yeah.
But so fortunately, I haven't really had that problem before. But also, I would say that if you do have, we don't want anybody to get hurt. So if somebody out there is listening and they have a new dog, and the dog is having some growling issues, then I would recommend that you get a trainer before you do. Don't get hurt.
Yeah.
Get a trainer involved. Don't try to be a hero. All trainers are going to give you some tools, like the prong collar or like the e-collar, to help you get the most out of your friend and keep everybody in your house from getting hurt. So it's easy for me to say, oh, well, this is what I do when a dog growls at me or when my own personal dog growls at me. And it's because, I've been dealing with dogs for, over 10 years.
Yeah.
So, but people listening at home haven't. So just, be safe. And if you feel like you're in danger, then the best thing to do is to get a trainer involved or get a veterinarian involved.
All right. Dogs don't like to watch TV.
Some dogs like to watch TV. Yeah. So I think for some dogs, if dogs do not like to watch TV is a myth. If you put all dogs, it's definitely a myth.
All right, two more. Blind dogs will eat anything.
Oh, that's a myth because
If you
their
have,
noses are so good.
yeah, if you have a dog, because I had a dog that ended up being blind and then it ended up eating its own poop, and had never eaten its own poop before, and I'm like, what are you doing? And I just figured it's because he's blind and liked the smell of it, and so he's just eating it. So the fact that is there something to that?
I mean, I think that they use their eyes to figure out what is food, but also a blind dog is not going to eat anything. That they may put more things in their mouth.
Yeah.
But that's not eating. That's not eating. They may use their mouths more for feeling things if they lose their eyesight.
It was great because whenever I walked it, I didn't have to pick up its poop.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm kidding. Finally, shaving your dog will keep it cooler than not shaving your dog.
That's a myth because they use some breeds use their hair in their coat as a cooling mechanism.
How to?
Sorry. What's that?
How do they use their coat to stay cool?
Well, it has to do with like moisture retention. It helps keep them cool when you add the fur to moisture.
There you go. Awesome. A great show. Coming up next week, you're going to have your show airing every single day of the week. I'm going to pick a time for you. As a matter of fact, I think Darkside the Pooch is going to be airing every single Monday through Friday night at 7 o'clock. So when you're driving home, you can listen to your show every Monday through Friday right here on Tony Kurre Radio. Of course, go to Spotify or wherever you get your podcast, and you go back and listen to all of our Darkside the Pooches and hear the shows live right here on TKR, the TKR app, and Tony Kurre Radio. Dr. Rab, thank you so much.
All right, man. Great time. Talk to you next week.
And, of course, every week it's brought to you by Ed's Pet World. Ed's Pet World down there in Homewood. They're getting ready to celebrate. They're going to have their 50th anniversary here in about a year and a half, 2 years. We're going to have a big celebration. Exotic pets. I was down there last week. I saw a Cayman alligator. They had bearded dragons, tarantulas, ferrets, rabbits, birds that were singing, talking to me. They have water turtles. They got everything down there. Great fish down there. I got me a couple of sucker fish. Check out Ed's Pet World. Of course, Seth travels the country, and he's looking for great toys in the box. He does watches. He does Star Wars stuff, Star Trek stuff. He does it all. If you're looking for any great vintage toy, check out Ed's Pet World for exotic pets and vintage toys, and they buy, sell, and trade those toys as well. Check them out. It is Ed's Pet World. Thanks. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Tony.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.